DC here. Hi guys and gals. Well, it's Thursday and I hope that you are all well. I'm on my lunch break in my usual place. And you know, one advantage to having it like in the late autumn period right now is that nobody seems to want to come here anymore. It's too cold. But I enjoy it. That means I've got my place for myself. I can easily, I don't mind, as you know, vlogging with people around, but if it's full of people, it's a little bit of a pain anyway. And I just like the peace and quiet over lunch. So today I was listening to a podcast coming to work this morning, and there was a little segment that I found kind of interesting. It was about the comparison of what one would call your resume self would basically, we could say, your obituary self. And the example that was given, I think it was Alfred Nobel, where there was a mistake. It was his brother that passed away, but they made the newspapers made the obituary for him. And when he saw what they wrote about himself, about a person who basically made a lot of money by killing off people, because it was, the dynamite story and so on. And anyway, it was so negative that he said, no, I can't be the person that I am perceived to be. And he basically gave away a lot of his money, and that's where all the Nobel Prize stuff comes from. Now, let's not get into how good the Nobel Prize and how what it's become. That's another story. But the story behind there is what you put on your resume, of course, when you think about it, is usually putting out all your best sides. Obituaries, I would say, is a bit of a mixed bag. If you look at when you read sometimes, or you see the obituary that's given actually in a church, or what, it makes you look like a superhuman, or what. But we've seen in the lately, with obituaries, like look when the terrorist was killed off, the one from ISIS, and that the Washington Post basically put him as a scholar, and so on. So there are things that come out with obituaries that usually don't make you look the way you are, and probably that's the whole thing. Be it a resume, be an obituary, how do people perceive you? And the way that you're perceived, is it have anything to do with the way you are really? Your inner self? Does your inner self shine out of you, if you know what I mean? I'd be wondering that about myself, actually, when I heard that. I say, when people think about me, do they know who I am? I had a chat last week with one of the young ladies at work, and she knows me quite well by now, but she's probably one of the few where I work that know me, I would say, almost as I am, or at least closer to the way I am. Being the so-called chief scientific officer and sitting in my corner, I am perceived as extremely serious, if anything, probably, it's starting to rain, extremely boring person, maybe even. That's scary. And I showed her the other day, what was it? Oh, it was the Halloween, one of those Halloween collab videos that we used to do quite regularly with Tweetness Irene. And she just laughed because she's seen other things that I've done, and she said, you're a crazy man. But why I'm saying that is that the perception that people have of you sometimes is just so different from the real person. Now, we all have our masks, don't we? And sometimes those masks are for the good, but sometimes actually they just, when they hide too much of the real person, all of a sudden you can't take the mask off anymore, and you wonder, who am I? Who have I become? Strange in a way. isn't it? I mean, there's these layers sometimes of it's like on a paint, you know. There's too many layers, it just kind of dries off, and you can't really pull it off without destroying what's under. If some of us become that way with time, I don't know. If you look at social media certainly helps us put on a lot of masks at a time. Some of us use social media to probably pull out the real self, and others actually use social media to, you know, to become somebody else. And we all know, especially I would say since social media is out and all the political divides now, how mean people seem to have become, because they can lash out at you. You're too far away to lash back or whatever. I don't know, but you know what I mean. Everybody has seen it lately. I mean, you know, hate rants and whatever, you know, things like that. There's a lot of that going on. Yeah. Anyway, what do you think about it? Masks. It's not only masks. I mean, is it personality changes? How do we see ourselves? How do other people see us? How much of us is really shining through? I always try to say that what you see is what you get, but I know very well that I, like everybody else, we have our sides of our personality that are for us, or just for very, very few selected people, or, you know, maybe not even anybody else but ourselves. Okay, tell me what you think about it. So that'll be DC signing off this Thursday for a lunch vlog. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.